I'm Michelle Austen from Calgary, Alberta, and I'm a professional artist that is here, very excited to be having an exhibition at the Revelstoke Visual Arts Centre. I think that I was born an artist. I've always done creative endeavors, but I was very lucky to cross a few significant teachers in my life. The first one being my junior high teacher, which was grade 7, 8, and 9, and she was an excellent art teacher that sparked an interest. And you know, I still remember the painting I did. My dad brought it. I brought it home. My dad hung it up, and so it sparked something in me enough to pursue art all through school. And then after school, I did not go and do a fine arts degree. I actually went to SAIT in Calgary and took medical lab technology, and always pursued my art on the side. When I was about 19, I found my art teacher through a mutual friend that we still paint. Her name is Betty McDonald, and I went to her every Wednesday night for art lessons for probably almost 30 years. And she has now passed, but I think she's still looking down on this today. She just really had a way of breaking everything down to teach, and because I teach too, like I teach the way that I learned. When I first started teaching, I had a group of young 7, 8. I just had this idea that I wanted to do these after-school art classes. Like, after being a parent, my children are adults now. I have a boy and a girl. They are on their own and whatnot. But I just remember, I just wanted it to be easy. So I literally hung little sticker notes up on the post office, art classes, and that fall I converted a garage in my backyard to an art studio. And I thought temporary, but now it's been 15 to 17 years later, and we're still doing art classes out of that little space. So there's been a lot of art created through a lot of people, which is really fun. The theme is wildly captivating. That is wildly captivating to me. Most of the show is oil paintings. There are some acrylic paintings. As I get tight to the end, I switch to acrylic, or sometimes I just paint in acrylic. I paint in all mediums actually, but mostly my bigger works, mostly my paintings are oil paintings. This is my favorite subject, florals and Western Canadian landscape. So basically I love to get out and hike and explore, and I feel like my best work is places that I've been and experienced, and then I gather information and I sketch, and sometimes often I plan or paint outside. Then I go back to the studio and pull it all together and decide, what stood out for me, and kind of paint. At that point I'm painting from photos and sketches and memory and having the experience, but the more that I paint, the more the experience is the most important part of it. And there's just some essence that comes out because you're here. So, you could do that with still lifes and portraits, but I like Mother Nature's still life is pretty awesome. So getting out there is good. Even though there's bugs, lots of bugs. Yeah, I always set an intention for a painting, and right away, usually I start with a sketchbook and I kind of jot down some thoughts and things and some thumbnail sketches and whatnot. You have to look at something and be moved by it, and those are the paintings. And when you're moved by it and you can capture some of that, what made you come alive, if I can capture that in my painting, I feel like it's a successful painting. My biggest goal is keep going. Keep going when times are tough, and just get your head down and get into the studio and remember that. Stay grounded. Remember that there's a reason. Always have to go back to why you paint. I think teaching a lot of art, you start with something, and next thing you know, you're focusing on something completely off the wall, and the painting has nothing to do with that, but that's just human nature, right? We get off track, and then you're like, oh yeah, why am I here? And then you pull yourself back, and in art, to the focal point. What are you painting? Why are you painting it? What does it mean to you? And if you've captured that, it's done. So that is very easy to say and very hard to do. I would have went to fine arts school. I would have done that because even though I got all the art awards in school, no counselor ever said I could go and get a fine arts degree. So actually, like when I think back, nobody really ever said I could do that. And I've always wanted to do that, but it just didn't fall in my path. I had young children that I had to raise, and then I just decided that, oh, I just got to do that. But I wanted to be a vet. There's the animal thing. If there was one other thing that I wanted to do, it was to be a veterinarian. I almost went that path. Van Gogh said I think it was Van Gogh that said if I could only paint like a child, and it's so true. And people will say, like, what do you mean? Because people will look at, like, they'll always appreciate a child's, okay, this is very interesting, they'll appreciate a child's artwork because it came from a child. But if an adult does something like that that comes from their heart, they'll be like, well, I could paint like that. And I'd be like, well, do it. I can see from teaching a lot of people where they're like, that's you, and oh, that's where you've gone away from you. And I can, kind of catch that. It's harder to do in your own art, but I've painted a long time, but I know when I'm in my heart and I know when I'm in my head, and there's a big difference. A lot of great art has come out of sadness, I think, like, I don't know, but I'm thinking that, and that feeling of loneliness, which I've had a lot, in this last couple of years, which is different for me because I had now I'm an empty nester. My daughter moved out and my dog passed away, and I'm just like, oh, and I've had no students come. I'm like, oh my God. that was all at the same time, right? So I'm saying that there was a lot of space, which is sort of an artist's dream if you can focus, but if your head's spinning out, that's not very productive either. So yeah, knowing, just get to work. What was Robert Genn? He's like, go to your room. That's what I learned. I went painting with him in the Bugaboos, and his whole thing, my whole takeaway of the lifestyles of the rich and famous painting extravaganza in the Bugaboos was go to your room and paint. So there you go. Just go to work. Go to work.